Welcome to Your Family Dog, a podcast dedicated to helping families love living with dogs.
Hello, and welcome back to Your Family Dog. I'm Julie Fudge Smith, and I'm here with the ever creative and talented and much smarter than I am, Spring. Okay, and as per usual, when we got together to record, we're like, what do we talk about? And Tina came up with a great idea, something that we may have touched on in the past when talking about things to watch for that could result in problems that you're having with your dog. But we haven't done an entire episode on it and think that it really is truly worthy of a full episode. And that's resource guarding. Resource guarding, sometimes you can think of it as is your dog being protective of a toy or food or a bed or a person. Sometimes I've had people say to me, oh, my dog really does a great job of protecting me from things. And when we actually get together, what I realize is the dog is not protecting the person per se as guarding the person as being, this is my person and I don't want you anywhere near it, which is very different than protection. So what we wanted to talk about, we wanted to define resource guarding. What is it? Why it's a concern that you may have. What do you do about it? What are the symptoms of it? What are you seeing that may lead you to think that your dog may be guarding or protecting or keeping a stronger eye than should be had upon something? And what you can do about it, and when you should seek some professional help, because this can become something that can be a very serious matter. And there are things that we sometimes do in an attempt to correct the behavior that actually exacerbates the behavior. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So now I've given you the outline for the show. I'm probably just going to shut up for the rest of the show and let Tina roll.
Don't do that.
Okay.
I can't carry it all on my own.
Yes, you can.
So resource guarding is a big topic with families, and it happens with all different breeds of dogs. It can happen for a variety of different reasons, and it can show its head in kind of a surprising way. So a dog who seems totally relaxed and happy and agreeable all the time can all of a sudden show up with resource guarding, and it frightens us. And so often that will get the ball rolling. We tend to take it very personally when a dog resource guards. So I thought this was a good topic for us in that this is something that families face with their dogs pretty consistently. It's also important to recognize that this is a natural and normal behavior in animals.
Right.
Including people.
Yes, I was going to say, because somebody pointed out to me, when you leave your house, you lock it, right?
Most of us.
So that in some ways is resource guarding, because you're protecting that house from somebody else getting it. And so,
right. If I'm eating a donut, do not come handle the frosting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, and it can be everything from a seriousness perspective. It can be everything from, hey, don't look at those French fries. I haven't finished them yet. I'm not done. All the way up to truly something that is life-threatening for your dog, because the behavior becomes so dangerous that it can't really safely be managed. So I think it's important to understand this is one of those things that some dogs are going to show a predilection to resource guarding much, much earlier in the process, specifically breeds that are supposed to guard, like livestock guardian dogs, right? They are intended to guard livestock. And so sometimes that guarding gets a little over the top. Other breeds, beagles, tend not to be huge resource guarders, but like golden retrievers. So I have said this before and I will say it again. I love dogs. I love all different kinds of dogs. The single most dangerous dog I ever worked with was a golden retriever with resource guarding. And it was an awful case. It was terrifyingly dangerous, partially because of the worldview that all golden retrievers are
Yes.
happy and love kids and don't get upset about anything.
Right.
And that was kind of what contributed to the situation.
Our Hudson, our golden retriever, he didn't resource guard from people. He was very good about that, but he resource guarded from the other dogs. And I remember one time he was lying in the hallway in our bedroom had two entrances to it because there was a door here and door here. Anyway, he was lying on the landing, and the Bernese Mountain Dog looked at me and went, "I can't go to bed because Hudson's lying in the doorway." And I had to wake him up. "Hudson, come on, let's move." And once we moved, he was fine. He let, the dog in. But it was like the dogs had learned, if Hudson's lying there and he's sleeping, don't wake him up because he doesn't like that. And he would resource guard things from them, and they were never sure quite what. The other thing I was hoping you were going to talk about a little bit too is about part of the severity of resource guarding can be how many things a dog resource guards.
Yeah.
We had our rebel we called him our trenching setter, our Confederate trenching setter, because we found him in a Confederate trench in Virginia. Never resource guarded anything until one thing. And we had these things called Winnies, which are horse treats. And they're actually, I actually tried one. They're really good. Anyway, we were coming back from the barn where our horses were stabled, and my daughters unloaded their tack boxes onto the grass as we were getting stuff out of the car. And Rebby went over and put his nose in it, and he found a Winnie. And I went over and said, "Hey, what you got, dude?" And he growled at me. That was the only thing he ever resource guard were horse treats. So we were just really careful about keeping the horse treats out of his way. So that was easy to manage. That's the only thing he guarded. But that's not often the case with resource guarders. I thought you could talk about that.
I would agree. So often it will drift from one scenario to another.
Yes.
And I will say, so back to the golden retriever that was truly terrifying. And I'm not terribly afraid of a ton of dogs. Like most of the time, I'm like, okay, I can have a healthy respect and navigate things pretty safely. This German Shepherd, it's not German Shepherd. I've never had a German Shepherd that resource guarded, but this golden retriever that resource guards, I was genuinely afraid, and he was muzzled and it didn't matter. I was still genuinely afraid for the family, for the other pets in the household, and even for myself, and for veterinarians. Like it was just part of the picture was we can't keep anybody safe. And that starts to make for really kind of trigger warning type conversation.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Let me talk about often how it starts. So there can be a genetic makeup. So let's say we have dogs that are coming from a situation where there's scarcity. If you and I sit down and watch National Geographic special on, the lions bringing down the wildebeest, dinner is not a peaceful thing, right? Everyone's kind of grousing over the pieces that they want. And they're not like, "Hey, could you pass a haunch?" Right? It's not polite. They don't all have napkins and a fork and a knife, and they're taking only their serving because food is a resource that's scarce, right? A lot of energy was utilized in order to catch the wildebeest, and probably somebody got hurt too, because wildebeest, not entirely pleasant, especially when they're trying to be murdered or when something's trying to murder them. So
I'm not sure how pleasant I'd be if somebody was trying to murder me. I'm not sure I'd say, "Okay, fine. Just, would you mind if I made the bed first so the house is clean?" I just, you're not going to.
Right. Exactly. Pass the alpaca. So part of it is it's a natural behavior. And so it will show up and surprise you. The golden retriever that I was talking about earlier eventually would guard bugs in the grass.
Wow.
That you and I couldn't see until after we were bleeding. So it could be a crumb in the carpeting. It could be if the cat got half an inch too close to mom. This all started, interestingly enough, with this dog, after children came into the household.
That isn't.
And I think, and they were younger kids. So they got him, I want to say they got him from a breeder at like 5 months. Pretty stable puppy, pretty normal, typical upbringing, like not perfect, but not awful, like we can always adjust something. But the kids, the youngest, I want to say was like 2 and was chasing the older siblings basically in life, and was the kids overall, the parents overall, their answer to a dog having contraband of any kind in his mouth was to panic and rip it out of his mouth, like while screaming and yelling at him and telling him he's a bad dog, right? Drop it.
Yep.
And if he didn't do it, they were going to the mattresses. Well, that started the cascade. Likely this was a little bit of an anxious dog anyway. When we went and did a history with the breeder, gently coaxing information out, we found both mom and dad tended to resource guard from other dogs. So we had a genetic component, and it just kind of escalated from there. And then they got well-meaning but bad advice from some animal professionals. So there were some, they had friends in rescue who were like, oh, you should do this. And then they went to a trainer who utilized very heavy-handed methods, saying, oh, I can rescue this from this problem by punishing the dog, which resulted in a dog who didn't warn you before he sent you to the hospital bleeding.
That's one of the things that I wanted to get into too, was the fact that when you start punishing this behavior, you got to think of it from the dog's point of view. If I have growled, right? Maybe the first thing I did when you approached me and I didn't really want you to get near my toy was I went really still. Just got really still. Didn't move, kind of froze. And I'm telling you, don't get any closer to me because the tail stopped wagging. Everything just stops, right? But you still come closer. So then maybe I lift my lip or maybe I growl a little bit. And you're like, no dog's going to growl at me, man. And then the dog's going, okay, I really thought I was being pretty clear. I thought getting still, now I growled, but you're still coming and you're still going to, so maybe I have to do an air snap because you're not listening. So every time you punish the dog on whatever level, he's not going to go back to the first level. He's going to go either to the level he just finished or he's going to go to the next one until pretty soon what you have actually trained him to do, because you haven't listened to his warning signs and said, okay, fine, I'll back off. What can we do to get the baby's diaper away from you or whatever in a way that's not going to make you feel frustrated? You're going to push your dog into more and more aggressive behaviors, and he's going to keep going up and up the more he gets punished because he's thinking, you don't hear me. You're not listening to me when I'm telling you oh so clearly that this is not good for me. In fact, I had exactly that same experience with a telephone company this week when I was trying to tell them that they couldn't send the equipment to the service address, which is our cottage, because no one would be there to receive it. You needed to send it to the billing address. So where did they send it? They sent it to the service address. And when I called them back to say, you can't do that, and UPS says I can't change it, they said, well, then just refuse it. I'm like, I can't refuse it because I'm not there. Oh, well, then just refuse it. I'm like, you're not listening. And I could just feel myself escalating just like a golden retriever with a bone.
Well, so this golden, interestingly enough, when we went back and pulled it apart, because this did end up in, sadly, in a behavioral euthanasia. There were not safe alternatives for this dog. And so we exhausted, we went to veterinary behaviorists. We tried medications. We did counter conditioning. We did a whole bunch of things and we made it safer, but we never made it safe enough. And so the decision was made that this dog could not be in polite society and maintained. And I endeavor not to judge a family about how much financial and moral risk they should be taking. Like, that's not my job. That's their job. It's their livelihood. It's their home. It's their thing. And this can be serious. And again, it was exacerbated by, it didn't look like a Doberman, right? It was a golden retriever. So no one
Yes.
thought anything. So I will tell you, we figured out what the inciting incident was. The oldest boy had crumpled up a coloring book page in frustration and thrown it on the floor. And the dog thought it was a ball, probably, and went and grabbed it. And the household exploded in hysteria, chasing the dog around, cornering him, telling him what a bad dog he was. There was screaming and yelling and crying. And in hindsight, the family's like, we probably scared the tar out of this poor dog, right? Over something like the worst thing that could have happened was he ate a coloring book page and pooped it out. Like there was literally no emergency, none. There was no emergency, but how we all responded resulted in escalating it to the point that a dog who was like, oh, I thought that was a ball, but it's not a ball. It's just stupid paper. It doesn't even taste good. All of a sudden took it to a level where the dog was like, well, I don't know what that thing was, but man, everybody wants it. So it must be more precious than gold. And then it started to morph into literally anything the dog put in his mouth. And when we're talking about any of the retriever breeds, like if retriever is in the name, they are intrinsically, internally reward by parading and possessing something in their mouth. Most of the time, when those dogs pick up items, they don't shred them and eat them. They just carry it around and wag their tail and smile and tell you how beautiful it is that they have your sock, right? It's not a 911. And so first, I would say, if you think that if your dog is finding treasures that you didn't intend to be doggy treasures, my first question for a family is, does the dog eat it or does the dog just carry it around? If the dog just carries it around, then we can literally just wait. Because eventually Rufus gets tired of the crinkled up coloring book page. And the worst thing that could happen is he shreds it and the kids have to clean it up. Or I have to clean it.
Right.
Or his poop blows away in the wind. Like, so like that was the inciting incident, right? The puppy had, generally speaking, like if he had done puppy things before that, like grab the kitchen towel off the handle of the stove. When that happened, he would just quietly walk away with it. He would carry it around and then mom would find the kitchen towel totally intact, like laying in the hallway where he went and found something else to do. So they thought back to when that happened. Well, it turns out they made a big enough impression that all of a sudden it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so the dog started, if he found something, now he was going to escalate to protect his treasure. And that might mean that he's going to eat it. Well, now if the dog gets a sock, if the dog picks up a rock, if a dog picks up certain toys, if a dog picks up a pine cone, all of a sudden we have a potentially life-threatening situation. Because a bowel obstruction is a very real possibility. So now this took it to a more serious level from the humans because sure enough, before the puppy was 8 months old, we had a bowel obstruction surgery. So now everybody's mad at everybody else because there was this big expensive surgery that the dog may or may not survive, that the vet's saying to them, like, you need to be more thoughtful about what this puppy is getting into. Like they're getting harassed. It was a big financial concern and things just continued to escalate. So when we think about it in hindsight, being able to pull apart these situations, we start to go, oh, okay, we could see how this could make it worse. Like if every time I picked up a pen, Christopher tackled me and pried it out of my hand, I'm a wimp. So I would just like, I don't know, use a pencil. I'd find a marker. I just wouldn't do it around him, whatever. But there are lots of people who would go to the mattresses and be like, don't you come near me when I pick up this pen. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So no, I get that. And it's funny because I was thinking about it because I have a spaniel and I have a retriever. And when somebody comes home, right, Zuzu's all wiggly. Clementine is always like, seriously, like, I need to be holding something. So I'll be right with you. And she goes and she finds a toy or she holds it and she has to wiggle. Or like when the grandkids come over, she likes to walk around with their shoes. And the grandkids don't like that. So we've taken to, oh, Clemmy, you have a shoe. Come here, sweetheart. Here, have a biscuit. Drop the shoe. You get a biscuit. And it's all done. It's over. And then we put the shoes in the garage where Clementine can't get them. But it's very tempting for these little people to go, Clementine, there's my shoe. It's like, yeah, and she will drop it. So can we take this down a notch? So I think that it's, kids don't necessarily understand, what the level of what the appropriate level of reaction should be.
Yeah.
And
so
that's hard.
Oh, no, it is. It's really hard. And then it becomes an emergency, right? Like you add a tired adolescent dog to a tired mama and daddy and tired kids and stuff's going to get sideways. It just is. Like, it's going to get bad. So we're all going to make decisions, including the dog, that they wouldn't have made if they were well rested and relaxed and everybody was happy, right?
Yeah.
So signs that your dog might be resource guarding. So Julie talked about some. So a dog who gets very still when you come near them when they have something, or they're lying somewhere, or they're next to a human, or they're next to the cat, or they're next to the child. I've seen a lot of dogs guarding the infant, which is
scary.
Very worrisome.
Very.
So first, what is protection and what is resource guarding? Let's start there. So protection is the bad guy jumps out from behind the Suburban, wielding a baseball bat, asking for your purse in not polite terms. And your dog says, that dude is a threat. That's being protective.
Yes.
Right? There is an actual threat. And the dog is saying, hey, you're not going to talk to my mom that way. Like, you seem shifty, right? The dog is going to give what are called distance increasing signals. So signals, growling, barking, lunging, snarling, all sorts of things that say, hey, we need more space. You need to back off, Buster. Like, that's what distance increasing signals are. And they're kind of a pretty big, they're pretty obvious escalation that the dog is like, I need more space.
Yes.
And I love it. People are like, well, why doesn't the dog just give the dude more space? I'm like, because he didn't think of it. Right? The dog just didn't think of it. They didn't think like, you know what? I should probably I don't know, take 10 steps backward. Maybe that would be more comfortable. They don't think of that. They're like, you move. Because remember, your dog, even at the height of their intellect and cognition, is a toddler. Your toddler does not often think, you know what? I don't need those crayons right now. I'll go do something else. No, they're going to pummel the snot out of their sibling to get the purple crayon because I'm a toddler and I want the purple crayon.
Right. And not that I want to color anything purple. I just don't want you to have the purple crayon.
Exactly. It could be as simple as what you drew looked really good with the purple crayon. And so now I must have the purple crayon. Like, it's the toddler creed, which is okay. But it's important to understand that's where your dog's coming from to a certain extent too.
Well, the other thing is dogs also make spatial decisions too. It could be that the guy coming at you with a baseball bat, there's no room to retreat.
Exactly.
One of his responses to that may well be to flight. But if there's no options for flight, then I may default to fight or freezing. I mean, your dog's reaction may depend in part on the circumstances in which they're caught, which it happens with all of us. It's my first reaction is kind of like yours. It's like, okay, fine. I'm just, flight is, turning my head away, whatever. I'm just, you do your thing over there and I'll do my thing over here and we'll all be fine. But if you back me into a corner, then I'm likely to, come out of the corner because I don't have another choice for an action. So I think part of it will depend too on how your dog perceives the situation. So,
well, and what rehearsals has the dog had?
yes.
So if the dog's experience is, I bark at the UPS guy who is obviously coming to steal our stuff, and I bark, and this terrifying UPS guy goes away. Sorry to all the UPS people. Sorry. I know you're not terrifying, but dogs disagree, right? Or when you're on a walk, every time they see another person coming toward them with a beard and sunglasses and a baseball cap, they bark and the person goes away. Your dog has rehearsed. I give a distance increasing signal and the bad dude goes away.
And it worked.
It worked every single time. But now dude with the baseball bat, he is not following the rules and he needs to get schooled a little bit.
Yeah.
Frankly, dude with a baseball bat's not going to come near you when you have a dog anyway, but that's a story for another day. All right. So how to tell that your dog might be resource guarding. They can get still, like Julie talked about. They can also speed up. So this is the dog who's like eating their food at, warp 2, which is normal speed for a dog eating.
Yeah.
And when you approach the bowl, suddenly they have moved into super speed land where you're like, what just happened? How did you just put a cup of kibble in your gullet with no movement? Like the dog ate so quickly.
It was like they hoovered it up, right? Like you're in a vacuum.
Yeah.
It's gone. It's like, whoa, what just happened here?
You also want to think in terms of a continuum of loose and wiggly to stiff and worrisome or still. So if the dog was relaxed and happy eating his food, and then you walk by and all of a sudden he looks like you could pick him up by the tip of his tail and he would just stay
like he's a tough dog.
Yeah, that's Houston. We have a problem.
That's right.
Right.
And if he starts giving you the side eye, like the eyes get really big and he's looking at you sideways.
Yes. Or
like,
a dog who stops eating. And yes, if you're thinking to yourself, well, dog trainer, you're contradicting yourself. You're saying it could be this or that. You're right. It could be any of those things.
What I think what part of this boils down to is, what is your dog's normal behavior? How does your dog normally eat? How does your dog normally behave? And if we start, veering in some odd direction, so that, your dog is just kind of a loosey goose and I'm eating and everything's fine. And you walk by and suddenly I stop eating. And you're going, I wonder what's going on there. Or you walk by and we've gone into hyperspace and suddenly everything's gone. And you're also going, whoa, that seems kind of weird. When you're like, what's going on? That should be a clue that you need to take a closer look at what's happening with the behavior.
Right. Or let's say suddenly the dog is swinging their butt toward you while they're eating.
Yeah, that's
right. They're putting their butt between you and whatever it is they're doing or have. Right. So all of these behaviors are, I want to be left alone. I want to be left alone. I want to be left alone. And it, again, so a lot of times it will happen in multiple dog households. It'll happen in households with anyone who lacks impulse control. That can be grown-ups or it can be kiddos, right? So it can also be your cat. And I will tell you, my cat is like the biggest jerk about torturing the dogs. Like, I can be working a dog and if I don't put the cat away, he will totally build resource guarding because he will come out here and try to steal their cheese. He just will because he thinks it's funny. Because cats have kind of a whack sense of humor. So it can be that, like, the cat or the Gina, who handles our positive reinforcement-based board and train, pretty regularly, the chickens come to steal the treats from the dogs. the dogs get over it. Mostly because George the goose has set some boundaries about don't mess with the chickens. So I don't think he really cares about the chickens. I think that George just wakes up every morning and chooses violence. But, you know, I'm not a goose whisperer. So your dog can side eye. They can grumble, right? And that's it's that rumble of thunder off in the distance that you're like, did I actually just hear that?
Yeah.
It can be just teeth, right? So a dog who's doing a C-shaped pucker, meaning that you're seeing only front teeth with a raised lip, exposing those front teeth, and you're not seeing molars typically.
Yeah. What I
Right?
tell people is look for if there's I used to show people this picture. I had this great picture of this little chihuahua whose lip was curled. And I'm like, what tooth is he showing you? And they said, well,
The stabby one.
this canine. Why? Because he's saying, look, I've got a weapon and I know how to use it.
Right. And in all of this, we get offended. We're like, hey, dog, I watch a guy who does a bunch of alligator and other animal stuff and education. And there's a porcupine who every time he feeds them, the porcupine gets stabby and threatens to murder him. And he is always saying to this porcupine, like, dude, I'm the one who gave you the food. I'm not going to steal your food. But the dog doesn't know that. The porcupine doesn't know that. They just know that if I don't protect this food, it will disappear and I'll die. This is a fear-based response, even though from our perspective, we just see the menacing. So we see it as the dog starting it. And many times it's accidentally us. We're too close to an animal that wants to, needs a private moment.
Right. Well, I see it with my grandkids. Like, one of them I had a couple over today and, I can't remember, I gave one of them something and it still had part of the wrapper on it. So I said, Gregory, give that back to grandma so I can I didn't want him to eat the wrapper. So I can take the wrapper. And he's like, no, you gave this to me, grandma. I'm just like, okay, Gregory, here, take this one without the wrapper. Give that one to grandma. I'll take the wrapper off and you can get it back. Now you get two. Well, I kind of like that. That was down. Now that's not bad. But
that was not a bad plan.
Yeah. But the fact is that he really wasn't all that eager to give up something that I'd just given to him that he really wanted. And, I think he would have happily eaten it with the wrapper. But I don't think his mother would have been happy with him eating the wrapper.
Probably not. But I would also be wondering, like, is it an emergency? Anyway,
it doesn't really
matter. Let's talk about prevention. One, if you can find out a history of whether or not, look to find out if the breed or breed group that you're thinking about bringing into your household is prone to resource guarding. I'm seeing more and more resource guarding in hounds, which we never, ever used to see.
That's weird.
Well, so someone told me that the hunters up in the mountains for some reason thought that making the dogs like fight over resources, like having scant resources, would increase drive when the dogs are working.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I can understand how they might have that curiosity question. And if you have a hunting dog who's just living out on the property or whatever, not in with your kids, then it's awful, but maybe not super dangerous. They don't think about how dangerous it is beyond that, like when they have a litter of puppies. Because that mom, and let me explain how this happens. Like, let's say mom resource guards food from other dogs. She doesn't even resource guard from people. Well, now she has the stress of pregnancy and then a litter, right? And her caloric needs are through the roof. So she's eating anything that doesn't eat her first. If suddenly that stress, like all of that stress, starts to be passed on to puppies. And then once puppies are on the ground, mom is the first teacher. I have literally seen a mother dog guard her food bowl from puppies who can't see or hear and don't have teeth. They can only nurse. But she doesn't know that. Like to her, her stress level is so high, her hormones are so out of whack that she views her own puppies as a threat, right? Don't adopt from that litter of puppies. Don't do it. Don't do it. That is avoidable suffering, right?
Right. Because what you're talking about here is a combination of nature and nurture. Because probably when she was stressed during pregnancy, then those babies bathed in cortisol, right? So now they've developed a hypersensitivity to cortisol in utero. Now, when they're born, then they have this stress. Not only are they sensitive to cortisol, now their mother is stressing them, right?
Yes.
And so you have environmental factors that are beyond your control that you can't do anything to remedy about because and this environmental effect of this high level of cortisol on these infants with immature nervous systems and immature brains, it's going to have a long-term effect on them. It can't help but not have one.
Well, in a file cabinet that doesn't have very many files in it.
That's
so
right.
each file has significantly more weight.
Yeah. So it's
right. So if you've only had 10 days worth of experiences, but those 10 days of experiences, one of them was really terrifying, that's going to have a tremendous impact on that creature.
Right. And single event learning is a real thing. It is
right.
an absolute real thing.
Right. So, I mean, honestly, we do not know what makes some kids, when they fall off their bike, rub dirt on it, jump back on their bike, and off they go and never miss a beat. And some kids never get on a bike again. We don't know what that mechanism, at least to my knowledge. If you're a neuroscientist or a psychologist and you know why that's happening, feel free to update us because I need new data. I'm totally willing to be wrong. I'm very good at it. So I like learning new things. So this is one of those things where if you have a puppy that is exhibiting resource guarding, you need help from a qualified positive reinforcement based trainer, someone who understands that telling the puppy no and punishing them or playing with their food is going to make it worse, not better. Right? If somebody is telling you to stick your hand in the dog's bowl to lower their resource guarding, that person is at best misguided. Yes. Because if I was eating a bowl of ice cream and you walked up and were sticking your fingers in it, that is not going to make me more comfortable about you approaching my ice cream. Thank you very much.
That's right. But if I'm eating ice cream and somebody come over and says, "Do you want some hot fudge sauce and sprinkles?" I'd be like, "Yeah, you bet.
Sign me up."
So that's why I tell people, no, what you want to do is walk by and drop cheese.
Be a giver, not a taker.
Yes.
Right? So if you focus on how to get your dog, your puppy, to relax and wag their tail and to move away from the thing, which may take a minute, great. Like there is the window to the kingdom, like how to handle this. So
ideally what you want is when you approach for the dog to move aside and say, "Hey, you want to join me?" As opposed to putting their butt to push you away.
Right. So, I am often identifying resource guarding. I will tell you, it is most often in my practice seen in golden retrievers.
Yes.
Which is endlessly fascinating to me.
Me too.
But we just talk about, okay, so the puppy is on a tether eating in puppy class. I'm like, bring his meal. We're going to work on it. And while the puppy is safely on a tether, I am having their back, reading what the puppy is saying. And I'm like, okay, step an inch closer. And the moment, that liminal moment where the puppy says, something just changed and I think he's coming near my food, we throw chicken.
Mm-hmm.
And then we back away and we go back to that spot again. When the puppy says, "Hey, what are you doing?" we throw chicken. And we do that And usually within 6 repetitions, the puppy starts picking up their head, looking at us, smiling and wagging their tail when we approach at that location, which might be 10 feet away. I don't care. I
Right.
have to start where the
Somewhere.
puppy says, are you coming near my bowl? Because that's where the problem is starting.
That's right. You can't start where you think you ought to start. You have to start where the reality is. And the reality is it could be 10 feet, it could be 5 feet, it could be whatever. What I always tell people too is like, I don't care if your dog isn't a resource guarder. I still want you walking by the food bowl and throwing a piece of cheese or throwing a piece of chicken in, so that you're going to prevent the development of it, so that, when you're feeding your puppy and you put his bowl down, walk by and toss a piece of chicken. So even if we're not seeing any problems, there's no reason why we can't actually build up the bank there. Make some deposits into the bank so that this is something that never becomes an issue for your puppy.
So that may help. It absolutely might. It might just bother them, right? I have a case right now with an Aussie puppy that we think the cat next door built it. He eats on the back porch so that the dogs are separated, and we're in Georgia, so it's most of the time it's pretty warm. He can go eat. Well, he's not eating on the back porch anymore, but the neighbor's cat and dog come over and they'll monkey with him. So he was getting tense about food. It started about the other animals, and then it progressed to the children, and then to the wife, and then to the husband. So now we're backing all of that down. But so 1, prevention, feed in a crate. Don't feed in the kitchen. Don't feed in the bedroom. Don't feed in the bathroom. Don't feed the dogs on opposite side of the kitchen. Don't have your kids running past the dog who's trying to eat his meal to get to the refrigerator. Like, they are accidentally harshing the dog's mellow. Give the dog high value things like their food, like their no hide, like their pig's ear, in the peace and tranquility of their bedroom, which is their crate. So instead of viewing it the way most humans do, of locking the dog up, I think many times dogs view it as locking the world out. I close my bedroom door to lock the world out a little bit because I need a break. So I want the dog's crate to be a place of refuge where the dog can relax. And unless I'm dealing with itty bitty puppies, generally speaking, there's a 30-minute cooling off period in our house before dogs come out of their crates after they eat. Now, there can sometimes be some mitigating stuff, like Mr.'s elderly. So if he's screaming that he needs to pee, I'm like, all right, fine, come on, let's go outside. Like, I don't want him to have an error, house training error, because he's old and he forgot whether or not he peed earlier. I mean, to be fair, I'm kind of getting to that point too. So I try not to.
Through my mind too. It's like,
I try not to give him a hard time. Right. The same thing. If I'm going to give my dog a no hide, a stuffed frozen Kong, any of that stuff, it's going to happen in a location where the dog is going to be left alone. And that there's a barrier of some sort between my dog and anything else, so that they can just have peace and they can relax and enjoy the treat that I'm giving them. I mean, I don't know. I think about it like placemats, right? Like, my placemat is my domain at the table. Don't touch the cake on my placemat. So having just separating for feeding and for high value reinforcers, like no hides, bully sticks, things like that, is hugely helpful in preventing a problem. I teach families to do hand feeding, where we are beautifully the giver. And I have found that that is an excellent way to work through prevention of resource guarding. And for dogs who do resource guard, often this can help with it. But again, this would be under the direction and supervision of a qualified professional who is helping you navigate waters that are a little bit treacherous.
Yes.
right? So let's talk about when you need help. You need professional qualified help when it creeps you out.
Yes. That's a really good way of
If,
putting it.
if you're saying to yourself, something's not right, something's not right, something's not right. Like that's all the information you need to know. That is your amygdala sharing with you at least tens of thousands of years of evolution going, that's not safe.
Yeah.
Whether it's the kitty, who, by the way, resource guarded a lizard from me the other day. I made that lizard very high value because I had an emotional response to a live lizard running around in the house.
Well, understandable.
I mean, I did actually go and grab some of the cat's high value food and toss it in his bedroom, and he released the lizard, which eliminated the resource guarding of the lizard. But then there was a loose lizard in the house. So that was fun. I found him later. And fortunately he was on the container that holds the firewood in the living room, and there was no fire in the fireplace. So he was slow. So I could catch him and take him outside. It was wonderful. It was a catch and release program. All right. So if the behavior person that you're talking to is telling you to scruff the dog, to mess with their food, to tell them no,
Alpha
to
roll
take
them.
things, to alpha roll them. There's a wonderful option. To I'm trying to think, what are some of the other, any way intimidate or punish the dog
Run.
because the dog's challenging you, run. Because they're not living with that dog. It's not their kids that they're taking a risk with. It's your kids. It's your grandkids. And I do want to say, seniors, grandmas, great grandmas, great aunts, great uncles with your dogs, it is not at all uncommon that your dogs will guard you from healthcare workers, from people coming to the front door, and maybe even from your grandkids, because they don't understand. Like, they don't often understand. So just get some professional help. Often, and I will say this pretty candidly, often we can do I can do one session with a family about what to switch up and give them some different tools, and they mitigate the resource guarding and it goes away. Now, it will always rear its ugly head, and this is not something that you quote cure, because the dog's not broken.
Well,
they don't have a disease.
Right. And the other thing is you never unlearn a behavior. It's kind of like trying to unsee something.
Right.
Once you've learned a behavior, you've established a pattern, you can counter condition that pattern. You can do things to de-emphasize the need to go down that particular behavior path. But that doesn't mean that the behavior path is not there for the dog to go down. And it could be that the dog is highly stressed or is not feeling well, or
Right.
I played too hard and I pulled my paw, and, I didn't sleep well last night, and my
Or he has a headache.
Yeah.
I ask every single vet, do you think dogs get headaches? And I am endlessly amused by the responses, because some vets are like, you bet. Yes, I would empirically say, yes, it's entirely possible that dogs get headaches. And then I get other veterinarians who have never thought about that.
Yeah. So it could be, but the problem is that your dog's resistance is down. Or it's just like, when I don't feel well, I'm not as nice. It's much harder for me to, be an amiable soul. And so I think it's the same thing for our dogs. If they're off, if they're just feeling off, it's going to be much harder to not go down that path.
I will say, so my experience is that the dogs who are on the more agreeable end of the continuum, in my experience, when they resource guard, it is huge. And I think it's because they are so agreeable that if they get to the point that they feel like they need to defend something, you've like pushed them to a place that's not healthy, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they are generally really wanting to get along, right? So when all of a sudden there's something that they're like, no, I'm not giving up ground on this. It's so out of their wheelhouse that sometimes I think they almost overreact the same way we can,
Yes.
right? Like, imagine a situation where, somebody out of the blue surprised you in a really negative way, attacking your character or betraying you or embarrassing you in public, and it blindsided you. Your response was probably not typical. Your response was probably out of proportion.
And so I think you're right. I think that with somebody who's really amiable, you push them and you push them and you push them and you push them and you push them. And they're not going to just go, oh, I'm going to push back a little bit. You push them.
No, I have a long runway, but if you manage to get me to lift off, it is going to be profoundly uncomfortable and unpleasant until I'm just tired. Like, and don't laugh because I'm going to be funny. Like, I'm going to have the driest sense of humor you ever heard, and you're going to want to laugh. But if you laugh, bad things happen. Because I have now been pushed so far out of my agreeableness and being like really joyful about getting along in the world and just having a happy life, and stuff's not personal, and it's all good. It all works out in the end. It's not a big deal. When you get me to the point that I'm like hammer and tongs, like, yeah, you got a problem on your hands. Like, and it is not fun because I'm smart and I have the ability to say exactly what I want to say, the exact moment I want to say it, which is a blessing and a curse, as Julie and I are both aware. we have very good crow marinade. I make a fine crow for when I need to eat it. So all of this is to say, I will tell you that the most dangerous situations I face with kids and dogs, where we are at risk of a dog losing their life or losing their home, has in nearly every single case has been resource guarding.
Yes. And the problem is that when resource guarding gets to that point, and I mean, you're risking not only the dog losing its life, but you're risking a kid getting severely hurt by a dog. And dog bites are nothing to play around with. They can get easily infected, and it's a terrifying thing all the way around. And the thing we need to remember is that dogs don't actually want to get pushed to that point. This is not like, this is something that they enjoy. This is not like, I can't wait till, Benjamin comes down the steps this morning so I can put my canines into his forearm. They're not thinking that. They don't want to go there. But if you push them or they feel pushed to that point and they react, it's not good for anybody.
So I'm going to tell my resource guarding story about Shorty. So, Shorty was my Jack Russell. Well, he's a Parsons Russell Terrier that I purchased from a phenomenal breeder. He lived to almost 18. He was a healthy dog his whole life. He had wonderful temperament. Anybody who knew him was just in awe. Like, my staff referred to him as sweetness and light. Like, he was phenomenal. He could play with guinea pigs. He could play with kittens. He had very low prey drive. He was very good about giving thoughtful, kind corrections to puppies. Like, he could have been a vice principal where, like, he's making the same correction every day for 4 years and he still doesn't get upset about it. He's like, okay, I guess we got to talk about this again. Like, not a dog who was quick to escalate, didn't really get into quarrels with other dogs. So Shorty, when he was about 10, I decided that I wanted to learn a little bit about agility. So, poor dog. And so we would go and do agility. And it was the weirdest thing. So when the weather started to get cold, Shorty would jump on my lap and put his butt kind of toward my chest. And I usually I'd have a blanket on my lap that I'd kind of wrap around him too. And, we'd keep warm until it was our run. And then we would go sit back down again and huddle in the cold. And I couldn't understand why all the other dogs in class would start to come over to say hello to me and then veer off. I was like, well, that's weird. I wonder why they're all doing that. And then one of the other participants in the class brought a mirror. So Shorty, who never resource guarded anything in his entire life, at agility, guarded mom. So what I saw in this mirror when the woman's dog approached me was Shorty showing that dog. He looked like a werewolf. It was just knives. It was a horror movie of knives. This dog who loves cats and dogs and horses and people and guinea pigs and chinchillas, sweetness and light. Mr. Sweetness and Light was like, I will cut you if you come near my mom.
Well, do you think maybe he was resource guarding the blanket and staying warm?
No, because he did it even without the blanket. We did all sorts of testing. I think what it was is because his mom was a dog trainer, he had to share me and his treats all the time. But at agility, that was just him and me. And he didn't want to share. So if he was on my lap, he'd resource guard me. If he was not, if they were out playing after class, if I was walking around, he didn't resource guard me at all. He was totally fine with all the other class dogs coming over and playing with him and saying hi. It was just in the breaks sitting on my lap.
That
was it.
Huh.
No, it was fascinating because again, this was so one of the class participants is another trainer that I know pretty well. And she's like, he's guarding you. And I did the thing that I see parents do that. I'm like, I remember being dismissive and saying Shorty doesn't resource guard anything. Till he did.
Yeah. Well, that was it. That was the same thing with Rebel. We didn't think Rebel resource guarded anything until he discovered horse treats. And then it was like, I really like these. Why didn't you give these to me before? And why do I have to search them out like this? So get away from the tack box because that's where you're keeping them. So we ended up taking them out of tack boxes and just making sure they were in their container up on a shelf. And that was it.
So what I started to do with Shorty was anytime a dog started to head our way, this is why treating resource guarding gets run off in the ditch because it feels completely wrong. So every time a class dog would start to come toward Shorty and I, he would get high value venison.
Yes.
Every single time. If another class dog looked at us, Shorty got venison. And very quickly, 3 weeks of 1 hour of class, he was back to being, come say hi to my mom. We'll go play together.
Well, if you think about it, what happens is that the dog starts going, okay, wait a minute. Dog gets closer, venison happens. Dog moves away, venison goes away. So maybe if the dog gets a little closer, I'll get some more. So maybe I would kind of like that dog to come over because I could really use a piece of venison.
Yes. And I read his body language. I had other people in the class say to me, is he making the mean face or does he look pretty relaxed? Right? Be aware. I actually marked kind of loosely the area that he was guarding so that we had a visual that even from across the field, somebody could see where his stuff was, because part of the work in a class is that we're all working together to help one another with each other's dogs. Right. So, was I at first aghast and embarrassed? Of course I was. Right. When Marco guarded something from me the first time, I was like, how dare you? I love you. How would you do this to me? Right. I have that same emotional response. And then I remember oh, I'm a dog trainer. I'm held to a different standard. I gotta, I have to help. How do I help the dog relax? How do I help the dog wag their tail? And just that right? It's like when you're in an argument you didn't know you were in. How do you de-escalate things? And then I managed the things I need to manage. And I'm at the same time classically conditioning to reduce stress and to change how the dog feels about the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I didn't have little kids, right? We had 9 dogs at home. He didn't guard me from any of our dogs.
Hmm.
No, it was the weirdest thing. It was just an agility. It didn't even happen at my group classes. It's like he understood the rules there. So understand resource guarding can be this like one thing that triggers the dog. And it just comes out of the blue and it surprises you. And how you handle that one thing can really have a huge impact on the overall outcome for a behavior.
Right. Because what can happen is that if you don't take care of that one thing, it can really escalate. I had a client once that I went to see, and it had started with Kleenexes. The dog had just really liked Kleenexes. And then from Kleenexes, it went to paper, and then it went to anything in the trash, and then it went to all the trash cans, and then it went to, tissues and paper on the floor. It got to the point where it became unpredictable what he was going to guard, because it just seemed to just escalate. At first it was all paper products, and then it started being, any kind of wrapper, any kind of stuff. So, and then not only did it start expanding the number of things so that it became we were unable to predict everything he was going to, because every time I'd get this call, now he's doing this, and now he's doing that, and now he's doing this. It seemed like every day I was getting another call about something that was added to this increasingly long list. And in addition to that, even some things he minorly guarded, just kind of like, gave you the stink eye. But you began to be unpredictable what the level of guarding was going to be, and they were trying to do all the right things, and we were trying to make it better. But it got to the point where she had 5 kids, and she couldn't watch every kid and every dog, and there was a cat, and we finally ended up doing a behavioral euthanasia because it simply became too difficult and too unpredictable. And because he seemed to be escalating in so many different directions, and we'd get one side calm down, and then it would sort of squeeze out over here. We get that side calm down, and it would squeeze out over here. And it just became to the point where they were like, we can't do this anymore. We can't focus our entire household and energy and everything on all this, because it always seems to be something new. So it was a really tough situation. It was hard for everyone.
And if we can't keep ourselves safe, we really can't keep anyone else safe either. So again, the vast majority of the time you can work through this between management and training and behavior modification. You can get really, really great outcomes. I live my life in the company of 3 of our 4 dogs are significant resource guarders. We generally don't have dog fights, and they generally don't have conflict with us, right? When a situation's going to present itself, we're pretty aware. We have a good plan for how to handle it, and we endeavor not to make things escalate, right? If you have a dog who just guards the chuck it ball, your dog can just never, ever, ever see a chuck it ball again.
Yeah.
It's okay. That works, right? Or we can work through it and make chuck it balls just not that exciting. Oh, and I do want to say, in a multiple dog household, often the way people try to fix it is like, oh, then we'll just have 70 chuck it balls. That just turns the dog insane.
Yeah.
Because now the dog cannot physically guard 70 chuck it balls, and it like breaks them. So the answer of like, no, I'm just going to give you, there's going to be so many tennis balls that there's no reason to guard it. No, that actually in many cases will make it more dangerous and worse.
That's a really interesting point. I'm glad you mentioned that one, because that was something I had forgotten. But you're right. That is absolutely true. It's you're not going to flood them out of it,
No.
And so
no, you're not going to flood them out of it. I mean, maybe you could, but the risk that you're going to flood them into it and a big, scary escalation, a situation. We did a temperament test where we were assessing shelter dogs and we were looking for resource guarding. And we managed to get ourselves in a situation we weren't sure how to get out of the room. It was very scary. So
scary.
So yeah, flooding it doesn't really work. So, but there's hope. Like seriously, y'all, this is something that if you get good, excellent support from the beginning, game changer.
Absolutely.
Hugely different. And the vast majority of outcomes are really great.
Yes.
Really great. And in many cases, a dog who at the end of working through it trusts you and your kids more. They're more tolerant than they would have been in the past.
Because they understand that we're on the same team. That if I'm getting uncomfortable, you're going to respond appropriately. And so I can de-escalate. I don't have to keep telling you this. I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this, because the first time I tell you I can't do this, you hear me.
Right. If I go, oh, buddy, let me help you.
Yeah.
Whether that's the kiddo who's like, Chaco stole my Power Ranger. I don't even know what kids play with anymore. So when I try to think of a toy, I'm like, I don't know. What do kids play with? I need a younger. You need a younger co-host. A what?
Paw Patrol. My grandkids have a lot of Paw Patrol.
Paw Patrol.
Yeah,
right.
it was a cartoon, and then it has, it's about these dogs, and they live in this town, and like Marshall he's a Dalmatian, and he's the fire chief, and then is that Marshall, or is Marshall? Wait a minute, Marshall might be the German Shepherd who's the police officer. Anyway, they have all these different dogs, but then there's the mayor of the town is this woman who has a chicken. I don't understand. She and the chicken they're interesting. Anyway, Paw Patrol is one thing. And then there's Bluey, which is an Australian dog group. And
okay,
some of my grandkids are also really into Bluey.
All right. So yeah, right. Like it's helping the dog.
Puppies are always around. And I don't know how many, like I had Clement, we finally had to throw out this baby doll because I went, where are her hands?
So I swear, Victoria, when Victoria lived at home, if she's listening to this, she's going to want to crucify me. But so when Victoria was living at home, we had Willow, the female Doberman, and every left flip-flop looked like it was the victim of a tragic farming accident. And I would be like, how did Willow get your flip-flop? Like, you're 16 years old. How did Willow get your flip-flop? Like, she doesn't have thumbs. She can't open your bedroom door. If your shiz was put away, pick up your shiz. Like, put it away. She can't get it, or when she's in your room, I don't know, watch her. Have one of the bonies in your room that when Willow comes in your room, you're like, ooh, here's a water buffalo horn nobody else knows about. Like, redirect the dog. But yeah, she didn't resource guard him. But
Bingley would always choose the left shoe. He wouldn't do anything. He would just walk around with my left shoe. It was always the left one. But no, Clementine, we had this baby doll, and baby dolls come with those plastic hands. And I was like, there are no hands left on this baby doll. And so I was like, I cannot give this handless baby doll. My grandkids will totally freak out because I think she was also missing like part of her right foot. I'm like, no, this baby doll is being thrown out and I will buy however many more. I don't know how Clementine got the baby doll, except that we probably got, when you got 9 grandkids, things get left out. But
I mean, I don't know. You could have a conversation about the amputees and that, we're all different and we still deserve love.
Well, yeah, nice. I would have, but it was really kind of
creepy.
Yeah, it was just creepy. And I was like, I can't have this let's be sensitive to amputees phone conversation because I was freaking out over how creepy this baby doll looked.
I will say that
like Chucky on like awful.
So I can remember my mom saying to the dogs, why haven't you destroyed XYZ toy that was annoying to her? Right? Like my brother had this laser gun. I don't know who made the batteries that went in that stupid laser gun, but it made every kind of crazy sound under the sun. It was super loud. This was back in my brother was born in 79. So it's been a minute. I bet if you found that laser gun today, not degrading in a landfill,
it would still make
that
noises.
boy would still work. It would still flash and make noises. And it was so loud. And I was like, I can remember turning to my mom and being like, when are the batteries gonna die? And she's like, I don't know. Never, apparently. Like they should be, whoever created that battery should rule the world, because none of us would ever have to replace a battery.
Wow.
It was hysterical. But the same thing, like my mom's Doberman Montana had, somebody gave him a latex or vinyl bass, like fish squeaky toy that had the worst squeak in the world. It had like this weird honk chortle thing going on. That dog loved that toy and squeaked it incessantly like he was a donkey, and Squeaker never died. And again, I was like, who made that toy? It was indestructible.
Yeah.
The Doberman could not murder it.
Yeah, which is amazing to me because, anyway. So I think that the bottom line here is that resource guarding doesn't have to be the end of the world for you. If your dog is showing some issues and saying, I'm uncomfortable when you come near me when I have X, Y, or Z, then take a step back and ask yourself, how can I help my dog? And it could be that it's going to be a phone call to your positive reinforcement trainer. And if you're having a hard time finding a positive reinforcement trainer in your area, you can contact Tina and I at Your Family Dog Podcast at iCloud.com. And we would be happy to help you find a trainer in your area that can help you with this kind of issue. And I would say, when in doubt, it probably won't take a whole lot of episodes.
No, it's so rewarding to work on. It's like, okay, y'all, I'm going to tell you, resource guarding worked on well is fun. It's rewarding for you and the dog, right? It's like when you finally do the thing that you've been putting off too long and now it's stressing you out. And then you take care of it and you go, it's like a new day. Like the sun is shining brighter.
Yeah. So do something about it. Remember not to punish your dog, because that is likely to make the situation worse, and hopefully not to the point where it's unrecoverable, but that can happen. So notice the signs.
Fortunately, it's relatively rare.
Right. And what we can do is we'll try and put on the website, there's some pretty good resources. I think there's
the book Mine.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. We'll put that.
And
link.
I'll send you a video of a trainer who teaches drop, a really phenomenal way that I've had good success with. So I can send you that too.
All right. So we'll put that up, and yeah, Mine's a very good book. And I'm
going to say it wrong. Is that Jean Donaldson? I think that's who wrote Mine.
Anyway, thanks for listening to us on Your Family Dog. You got any ideas of topics? You got any suggestions that you would like us to look at? We'd be more than happy to hear from you. Once again, Your Family Dog Podcast at iCloud.com. And we hope to see you all next time. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Your Family Dog. Got questions? Interesting ideas? Visit www.yourfamilydogpodcast.com to share your thoughts.